Hey, everybody, Jonathan Bailor back. Very excited about today's show because it's with an individual who I recently had the pleasure of meeting and am so excited to continue to collaborate with in the future because he's really coming at this critical mission with a unique and amazingly passionate approach. He is an author, filmmaker, physician, lecturer, and world adventurer. He creates wonderful documentaries, and he is actually an ordained Taoist priest, as well as a key. Pedram, how do you say that?
Qigong.
There you go. He's a master at that. And he is the founder of well.org, which is just a wonderful website. We're going to talk about him, all the great stuff he's got going on, as well as his upcoming movie. Dr. Pedram Shojai, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, good to be here.
So what again was that thing you're a master of?
Qigong. It's basically Taoist energy yoga. It's the stuff you'd see Bruce Lee doing, with the deep breaths before you start beating on people, or what the old masters would do before they'd heal people, right? But I use it as an internal healing energy enhancement practice that I've been teaching for a long time. And, just kind of helping people optimize their energy by understanding the flow of it within their own bodies and their own consciousness and, all that cool esoteric stuff that, I spent a lot of time traveling the world studying for a bit.
Well, and Pedram, speaking of all that good esoteric stuff, you really do have a unique angle on wellness. So before we get into that, can you tell us, your story was fascinating to me, and I know it will be fascinating to the listenership. So just how did you get into all this?
Yeah, I was pre-med at UCLA, graduated top of my class, just kind of, fast track, I'm going to be a doctor. And then I started working with a bunch of doctors and saw how miserable they were and how the system was just not working very well for and this was particularly in a pain management setting. And I just got a glimpse of some of the broken side of the medical system at a very young age and said, this isn't for me. There just wasn't any life in that house. And so through my martial arts training, I started just kind of getting into the Jedi stuff. And just the more I studied, the more I realized that it was just this rabbit hole of just powerful, amazing stuff. And then, ironically, I ended up back in medicine, but, coming in through the perspective of Oriental medicine and then functional medicine and all this other kind of different understanding of how lifestyle interfaces with health, and then became actually, tremendously effective at helping people because the lenses that I was wearing were a bit more accurate than waiting for something to break and then hitting them with an intervention that was hopefully going to correct things, but cause other side effects.
Pedram, just to back up for the audience here a little bit, having seen both sides, often this sort of Eastern versus Western thing is presented as just that, Eastern versus Western. Is that your perception, or is there strengths in each?
Anytime there's a versus, it's because someone's got a vested interest in establishing themselves in some way. And I think that there's one medicine, right? And there's different ways of looking at it, but I use protocols from naturopathy, from allopathy, from Chinese medicine, from Ayurveda. Basically, I use what works. Because when people start talking in medicine about saying, well, I don't know if I believe in that, I say, well, leave the belief for church. If we're talking about belief, we're not being scientists, right? So I don't believe, say, in acupuncture. I experience acupuncture. I see it work for thousands of people in clinical settings all the time. So for me, I know it works. Right. And so you show me something works. And as a good scientist, I got to look at that and say, well, it worked. I might not understand it. Right. But that did what they said it was going to do. And now we got to figure out, the how and the why. But that's not, that's where the science really breaks down in our system, is people aren't willing to look at things objectively because their definitions of self or their financial interests are really tied to some of this stuff. And to me, that's just, that's primitive.
Pedram, I love that you use the word primitive there, because it seems that this pragmatic approach, which you talked about, is really how anyone could ever argue with that is rough, but it really does seem to be argued about. If something unequivocally works, there's no better example than a lot of individuals in the lower carbohydrate community who just they, for example, give up whole grains and they go see their physician, and their physician is like, what you're doing is wrong, despite the fact that every indicator of your health is getting better. Why? Like, how can a medical practitioner or anybody who is in the business of helping people see individuals getting good results and then tell them that what they're doing is wrong?
Well, when we draw a line around ourselves, then when something challenges that, then our ego faces annihilation. And a lot of the training that, especially the old guard guys, I mean, I'm friends with everybody, so I'm not a campy guy, but, I'll see a lot of the old guard people have a very strong position that they dig their heels in because it's like their identity, and they got to uphold it because it's us versus them, or these, the barbarians are at the gate, and all this kind of weird psychological stuff that gets them to stop critically thinking and stop growing as physicians. And that's, I think, when it's time to retire. I don't care if you're 40 or 80 at that point, but you're no longer being an objective doctor. And I agree with you. It's just, it's all over the place. And these doctors are not practicing the science of medicine anymore. They're getting campy, and that's not in the best interest of the patient.
Campy is another great thing to dig into, because one of the things that you do a really good job of is not picking sides, but focusing on results. But Pedram, one of the things that breaks my heart so much about some of the, because there is a 1%, let's say, that get it when it comes to wellness. However, they seem to spend more time arguing with others in the 1% about subtle nuance rather than just simply helping individuals live better lives. What do you think is going on there?
Totally, man. I think it's a lot of the same. And when we were going through the cuts of this movie Vitality, I mean, there's 2.5 hours of just pure genius in there. And I had to, basically in film, we call it, killing your babies. I had to let go of so much content that I thought was really compelling to water it down to basically teach America the basics and the core principles of lifestyle. And get it to the foundation, because, I got into an argument with some of the guys that were working with me on the movie from the start, and they were trying to talk about some, devices that can cure AIDS that the government doesn't want you to know about, and all sorts of kind of like hippy dippy conspiracy stuff. And I said, man, if I could just get people to eat vegetables, you're missing it. The healthcare debate in America isn't this really abstract thing about, kilocalories and what kind of paleo abstraction and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that's just for, that's for people in these communities that are just kind of duking it out on really high level stuff. And I appreciate that. That's academic. But for the most part, Americans have so many, and not just Americans, the Western world have so many just minor changes that they can make that would make drastic changes in not only their lives, but in the health of our country as a whole. That, that's the fight I'm picking. Is I'm going after the big changes that we can get with the millions and millions of people that are, morbidly obese and have diabetes and heart disease and all these other kind of secondary health risk factors. And they're dying. I mean, they're leaving widows and children behind because they're being mismanaged and they're being miseducated by big food and a medical system that doesn't really have time to talk to them.
Pedram, I love that mission. And it seems like it's exactly that audience that sometimes the other disservice they experience is they will be concerned with, let's call them minor things. For example, is drinking water out of a plastic bottle the best thing to drink water out of? Probably not. But should you worry about that if you're getting 60% of your calories from processed garbage and not eating vegetables? Like, maybe you should worry about that other thing first.
Right. Yeah, it's big. It's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's, when are you going to start looking at the labels on the cosmetics and the lipstick in the house and the fire retardants on the sofas? I mean, we live in really kind of complicated times where our environment is poisoning us and our foods are making us less healthy, one meal at a time. So, we need to get a beachhead so people start to really, and that's really where I kind of draw the line and kind of put my foot down in this space is say, look, as you enhance your vitality, as you increase the vitality of the system, then you'll have more available energy to make better decisions and to go for that run and run outside and throw the ball with the kid or whatever it is that you have been unable to do because of the compromises in your health and your energy system. So really the premise of my work is to help people liberate energy in their lives by cleaning up lifestyle a little bit. And as they start feeling better, then it becomes kind of a foregone conclusion that they would continue and wake up to more things. And then one day the plastic thing will make sense. But you can't see the plastic water bottle because you're probably drinking Coke if that's, if you're eating Cheetos too, So it's just how far gone they are and where we got to kind of pull them out, and that's the good fight. We're all fighting it.
Pedram, that's an excellent point, and it gets back to something we sometimes talk about on this show, which is the old Greek distinction of two definitions of the word time. One was chronos, and that's what we think about currently, but then there's kairos, which is quality of time. And you touched on something there which is so important, and it's if we can help the 99% to feel what it feels like to have vitality, as you call it. For example, these concerns with, this costs too much money, this takes too much time. When you are fully alive, you will be shocked at how much stuff you can get done and how much money you can make because you're operating at 100%, not 20%, right?
Bingo. But, and on that continuum, I agree with you 100%. But I would say on that continuum, when you're operating at 20%, you're so hard up to get through your day that if we could even eke out 5%, you're feeling so much better that everyone around you is noticing. And as you start heading up that thing, it's like you look like a saint in your community. And so it is that quality of time and it is that quality of life. And it's hard to even know what that is under the burden of disease, under the burden of, a compromised health system and a compromised health state. And people think that they're so far away from it, but just changing the way you eat has such profound effects that it can snap, even the person that's so far gone. I mean, I deal with very ill people in a clinical setting all the time. I mean, complicated fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, and just really nasty stuff. People coming in with like 10, 12 sets of medications that we're sitting here trying to like sort through. We just change their diets around and we do the stuff that we know how to do, and they start getting better. And it's not some like magic potion that I'm trying to sell out of the back of my snake oil thing, right? It's just, I think the commercial interests have changed the way medicine runs too in the supplement industry too. It's like, there's some magic supplement that's going to fix me up. Not if you're eating the Doritos, dude, and that's really what it is. It's like they have to understand, the people that we engage with have to understand that they are their primary healthcare interface, right? Mark Hyman says that, the 8,800 something hours in a given year, how many of those hours do you spend in a doctor's office? 2, 3, 4, 5? Well, the rest of it, you're out there busy living your life. What are you doing then? That's where the vitality comes or gets compromised.
Pedram, before we get into this amazing movie you have coming out called Vitality, which is going to encapsulate much of what we talked about here and provide just a wonderful narrative along with it, what are some of those top level things that in your travels around the world and your very diverse studying that you've found, for example, just 1, 2, and 3? These would be where I'd say people should start.
Sure. I'd say the first one, which has kind of been really up front and center in my universe right now, is get off that desk. Get a standing desk. Do not sit around all day. It just crushes the body's posture. It puts all this energy into the postural muscles and the brain trying to process it, shuts us off, and it gets us to basically break down. So one day when we wake up 2 months from now and we realize we're 20 pounds overweight and we decide to start playing basketball in our 40s, we don't kill ourselves and sprain an ankle and tear ligaments because we've been sitting around for 10, 12 years. So that's number one. I'd say number two is caloric restriction is this weird thing, right? That all these people talk about. For me, I just say, listen, clean up your diet, get organic produce. I'm a big fan of CSAs and local farmers markets. If it has a label on it, don't eat it, right? And if they could clean up the quality of their food, and there's, obviously there's lots of schools of thought on how to, mix stuff and this, that, and the other. I just get them away from the processed junk. I get them away from the GMOs, and I get them away from, a lot of the gluten and the casein and the stuff that people have high allergies to. And it's just like, backflip city, right? And then the third one I would say is an epidemic in the Western world, and that's stress. And if you don't understand how stress impacts you and what stress is doing to you and how to manage that stress, all the other systems get compromised very easily because of it. And so, I traveled and studied with the Dalai Lama, and I got to, I've had a very blessed life in studying with a lot of masters who know what's up. And those guys have gifts for us. There's pearls in the ancient wisdom teaching us how to use our breath to kind of down regulate the nervous system so that it's not firing and putting us into adrenal stress and all these things that modern culture is now suffering from. So, my third would definitely be stress management. And there's a lot of ways to do that, a lot of ways to skin that cat. But, for me, Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, yoga, these are all ways up the same mountain. But you got to do whichever one gravitates to you, you got to start. You got to do it.
Excellent. Well, I love this, and I can imagine that your upcoming movie here, Vitality, is going to give us just a great visual narrative example of this. Can you tell us a bit about what the mission behind this movie is, and then what we can expect?
Yeah, the mission is, primarily to have people understand that health is about vitalism. It's about supporting the body's ability to support itself, and in doing so, the body rewards us with energy, good mood, clarity, more money, all the things that we were talking about earlier. All these things are a byproduct of living a life with abundance, and you do that by allowing the body's systems to thrive. And we break it into this kind of superstructure of diet, exercise, sleep, and mindset. And those four spheres on the wheel of vitality all need to be turning. And as they're turning and generating more vitality for us, the system gets better. We start moving from that 20% closer to the 100%. And as we do so, we start you become kind of like a hot knife through butter, just working your way through the world. All of life's little obstructions and all these stupid problems that we always face and we can't get over, these insurmountable things, start to really become laughable as you increase your personal power through your vitality. And the interface with that is always through your body. It's how you eat, it's how you move, it's how you sleep, and it's how you see your world. And that's what this movie does. that's the promise of this movie, and that's why we made it, is to really become a foot in the door into that world. And then we have these huge archives of content and stories and all kinds of wonderful stuff we do through well.org to support people with that. But the movie is really about just saying, hey guys, there's a different way to look at this, and this healthcare debate in Washington's a joke. It's a healthcare finance debate. You want to talk about healthcare reform? Healthcare reform starts with you, not about who pays the bill, right? And we're looking to really change that dialogue.
But Pedram, you're a doctor. So what inspired you and what went into creating a film? That is an interesting a career, not move, because I know you still do both. You're just a really busy guy. But what inspired that?
I got to tell you, John, I kind of got tired of repeating myself. It's every single one of these different types of cases from different walks of life would walk in, and eventually I'd end up talking to them about diet and exercise and sleep and mindset. And I said, God, there's such a universal appeal to all this, and every single person that I put on this program gets better regardless of diagnosis, right? And in understanding that, then I realized that, it happened one night where my wife likes to watch TV. I think TV is mostly a joke. But, she said, listen, hang out with me, and I'm watching my show. So I grab my laptop and I sit down and I just kind of goofing off on my laptop while she's watching her show. And I counted 8 pharmaceutical commercials in a half-hour show. And that's when I realized that we were in a propaganda game. And there's billions of dollars being spent out there to convince people that they need products because they don't feel well, when all the while what they really needed to do is just know how to live better. It's how we live, right? Just clean up their lifestyle a little bit, and they wouldn't need any of that crap. And so for me, once I realized that, that's when I knew I had to get into media, because the doctors were losing that battle.
Well, Pedram, we're definitely cut from the same cloth, because you absolutely need to, in some senses, fight fire with fire. We can have all the esoteric discussions we want, but until we can have that, it's almost like those videos we saw back in the maybe 90s, where it's like, this is your brain on drugs, or the truth campaign around tobacco. We need to kick off those, but just around sleep and stress and eating, it sounds like.
Amen, brother. That's it. And that's why we're all fighting the good fight. That's why we're out here, just locking arms and being of service to humanity, because, listen, medicine's it's a noble profession, and that nobility has been compromised through profit motive and just the education being compromised and just all sorts of things. And we can get into the history of why the industry's been messed with. But the fact remains, people trust their doctors, people trust their physicians, their community leaders. And what we're trying to do is get the doctors to kind of step back up and be the leaders they're supposed to be. Like if your doctor is 60 pounds overweight, then maybe you need to go to another physician because they're not understanding how to take care of themselves. And so, we're really calling out the doctors and calling on them to step up and be the healthy people that can be the ambassadors for real health in this type of messaging as well. Because, I've met plenty of cardiologists that chain smoke, right? And it's hard to take them seriously.
Certainly the message of being the change you want to see in the world is one which I know resonates with our audience. So, Pedram, this is all gold. Where can the audience go to learn more about you and the upcoming production?
Well.org. So well.org is where I hang out. That's our neighborhood. That's where we do a lot of our philanthropic work and all that. And if you do well.org/vitality, you'll find the movie. And if you just go to well.org and poke around, you can find it. My esoteric stuff is on taoistpath.org, but you can find it all on well.org. Just land there and cruise around and see what we got. And we just do a lot of stuff to help people. And I sleep well at night, because it's where I was living a very comfortable life as a physician, but it wasn't enough, because my world around me was feeding me back news of calamity and feeding me back news of illness and suffering. And I realized that it's time to draw. It's try to draw your sword. When it's your calling, you get up and you do it. And so I feel really great about everything we do at well.org every day, and we're making a difference.
And certainly for good reasons. It's an excellent resource. And listeners, if you haven't checked it out, do go over to WELL.org. Dr. Pedram Shojai, thank you so much for joining us today, and I cannot wait to watch Vitality. I know it will be epic.
Awesome. I will send you a copy as soon as we get off, and thanks for having me. This was fun.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed this wonderful conversation as much as I did. Again, today's guest is the ever delightful Dr. Pedram Shojai. Learn more about him and his upcoming film, Vitality, over at well.org. And remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Chat with you soon.